Okay, so that has finished baking. It looks just the same as it did before, of course, because I've just reproduced the same settings that I made my original maps with. But you can see here that the static objects, static props, have done their job. They've thrown shadows onto the environment. If I grab one and move it, you can see here, that's it. It's baked in. It's in the light map. You can collide with these things, and any other kind of. I've only got crates and barrels, but in the future I'll produce more props. Maybe desks, chairs, whatever stuff that you don't want to be moved, but you want to be calculated in the lighting, make the scene look convincing. This is how I've been doing it, but they look odd. I've managed to keep them out of the calculation for making light maps. In other words, none of the surface of these props take up any space in here in these maps over here. And that was my aim. I didn't want to think that I couldn't just throw all these props all over the place without some cost. And this is my workaround. So, but I do find that it essentially messes up the mesh renderer. So this component over here gets messed up somehow. Now the other thing you need to do is, of course, reset render settings, the ambient light down to black, because otherwise anything's going to get overbright, and sort of black is a good baseline essentially. And you can see that none of that was changed here. They're being lit essentially by the shader, but now overlit because I don't know where the information is coming from. Essentially, like I say, those the mesh renderer component is getting corrupted. So what I do is I select them all again, and with the asset pack I did add a script in here. Where's it? Editor scripts, editor. Oh, here we go. In the editor folder under Clean Sci Fi, you've got make new renderer import setting. So make new mesh renderer, beg your pardon. Essentially, you need to select all the meshes you want to refresh or get rid of whatever's going on here. And what this script does, and it's under Tools here. Click on it, and in a flash, my script goes through all those objects, and what it does is it simply throws away the existing component mesh renderer and replaces it, and just happens to turn off car shadows at the same time. So now when you walk through, props still being lit by the shader that's been written, but because I've sort of tweaked it and tuned it, it should be quite harmonious, and things with the shadows that are calculated in the light maps look like they're there. It looks solid, they're not floating or anything like that, and all is well. Like I say, if you're being picky, you'd say, well, there's no shadow on the inside, but there you go. So that's good. Now, just to take it a stage further, this is all very well, but say in your game you want to have props move around that need to be lit and throw shadows, because you can't use this approach. If that moves, we've got shadows being left behind. But let's say that go into prefabs, let's get a new barrel, put it there. As you can see, let's just use a different layout here. Default. So press F. Oh no. Excuse me. Yep, click on the barrel again, into the viewport with the pointer and press F. Here we go, found the barrel again. Just try and find it. Okay. Yep. Right, so in this room, apologies if you already know this, but come on, where's my light? Oh, I've got it. Here we go. I've got that point light selected directly above. Now, you would think that, with this light, with soft shadows turned on, or even hard shadows, it would throw a shadow. But it doesn't, and the reason for that is it is set to light mapping auto. Now, whoops, under there, we've got real-time only, auto, or baked only. Auto, if it's on auto, and these all are, what's happening is that these are present and being calculated for all the light mapping. Then as soon as you hit the play button or look at it in the viewport or whatever, it turns off. So it's not throwing any more light. Any of the glow you see here is all calculated in the light map. That if I were to bring up light mapping again, so that this comes up. Actually, let's bring that over out of the way, so I can turn it off. Now, when I click that button, then these lights turn on. Of course, it happens in an instant, but essentially, if you turn all the light maps off, then the lights start working. That's what auto is all about. Instead of you saying real-time only or baked only, auto is flipping between the two. That's why it isn't doing anything to this barrel, and I can kind of prove that it's not illuminating the barrel by clicking on the barrel. Here's the barrel shader, and ambient power I've got here, which is this lighting. This cube map I'm using essentially is adding to the light that gets calculated on this prop, and if I take this value down to 0, it effectively turns it off, and there you go. The only thing, if I click somewhere else, see it better, the only thing that is giving this any kind of shading at all now is the reflection. So if I turn off reflectivity, that should be nearly okay, not quite right. There's something else going on in there, not exactly sure what it is, but turn everything else off. It's got a bit of something still illuminating it. Oops. In axis. Anyway, these lights aren't illuminating that because it's not throwing shadows or anything like that. So how do we get around this? I'll just turn its ambient power back to 1. So reflectivity was 0.33. Okay, kind of back to where we were. And really, for performance purposes, you want that to be the case. You want all these lights that are in here, and as you can see, there's a lot of them, and they, the ranges overlap as well. Look at that. That's quite big. So they all overlap. So you could have a prop in a room like this, and it could be lit by 3 or 4 different lights, and that's not necessarily good for performance, because each time a mesh is hit by a light, that's a draw call. It's hit by another light, that's another draw call. So you could have one mesh, having multiple draw calls if it's within the bounds of several different real-time lights. So a kind of solution would be to, if I just pull out a bit, make a new thing in the scene, and the thing you want to make is game object create other directional light. It kind of doesn't matter where it is in the scene, but I will reset its transform, I think. The rotation does matter, and I did actually reset its rotation there as well. So let's just rotate it so that it's pointing almost straight down. Let's give it a little bit of an angle just so it makes it easier to see what's happening. Now, it's illuminating everything, which isn't what we want. But at least it is just one draw call. For a mesh being lit by this, it will only produce one draw call for the light. It will also produce one draw call according to how many mesh components it's got and how many materials. But the fewer draw calls, the better for performance. Now it's over bright, and the reason for that is that where are we? Directional light. Select it. Is its intensity, obviously. The other thing is that under render mode, it's illuminating everything, even the stuff that's already got, the lighting already calculated. You don't want to add to that because, well, you get this, it gets over bright. So we go render mode, I beg your pardon, culling mask, nothing, effectively turns it off. So it's now illuminating nothing, but all my props in my scene I've got flagged as, just to show you, click on this one here, where are we? Under layer, props. So if I grab that directional light again and say culling mask, props, as you can see now it's illuminating all of the static props, except this guy, because it hasn't yet been put on the props layer. As soon as you do, there it is, illuminated. Now, the other thing you want to do is to have, excuse me, I'm just trying to organise what's going on here. Under the directional light, have it throw shadows. Hard shadows because essentially in this sort of Unity free version 4.0, you know, I believe that's all I'm allowed, so that's all that'll work. It's on culling mask props, and we'll go with default as well to bring this back. And now you can see it is actually throwing a shadow, which is kind of what you want. So if I move it around, shadow goes with it. That's good. Goes off the ground. Yes, that's great. Except, of course, everything is still over bright. But there's at least now the platform this is for is obviously you know, PC, Mac, and Linux. I haven't tested this extensively on any other platforms, so if this trick doesn't work, well, I have to think of something else. But essentially, if you take the intensity right down, it's off there, we lose the shadow. Turn it up just a little bit, shadow comes back. So I have it on the lowest amount you can have, then it hardly affects the lighting at all. If I do that, the scene brightens, but it's almost imperceptible. Shadow's very dark. If you want it to match up with these guys a bit better, you take the strength of the shadow, pull it down until it sort of blends in a bit better. And there you go. You know, not perfect. Soft shadow would be a little bit better, but it's obviously more expensive. You know, but for things that are being carried around or moved or changed through physics or whatever, that's not bad. That's not bad. And it's cheap because it's one light, and it's going to produce a decent enough result. Now, I also did notice in the background that animated objects, stuff that moves, click and get it here. Let's tell it not to cast shadows, and boom, that's got rid of that. So now that will work without throwing sort of nasty shadows on bits of the environment that you don't want. Forgot about that. Glad I caught that and saw that in the end. So sorry about the rambling nature of this this video. Getting used to doing video tutorials. Thanks if you've stuck this far for staying with me. I hope you like the asset pack. That's my approach to lighting. It isn't the highest fidelity, but I think you can see why and where I made the choices to make things quick to bake, but look pretty good and should be quite efficient. Doesn't take up too much in the way of light map space either. So thanks very much for watching. Slick, huh?